Hi guys, welcome to episode 12. You are listening to The Liberal Conservative and I am your host, Judy. So episode 12 is called Follow the Fiat, Central Banking Control and Catherine Austin Fitts. How they print power and why they don't want us to know about it. So in this episode, we're going to expose how centralized banking became the ultimate tool of global control. You'll trace the origin of fiat currency, the birth of the Federal Reserve, and how systems like BIS, IMF, and the World Bank enforce a quiet financial dictatorship. With inspiration from Catherine Austin Fitts, I'm going to explain who she is in a little bit. We'll show how money is used not just to buy things, but to own people. So the conspiracy that's not a theory. I'm going to quote Catherine Austin Fitts here and say, the financial coup is no longer coming, it's here. What if COVID, war, and AI were all connected to a banking agenda? Spoiler alert, it is. So I'm going to give you just first a layout of what we're going to be discussing. So the origins of the machine, the birth of the central banking system. So in 1694, the Bank of England founded model for centralized debt. In 1913, so literally 220 years later, the Federal Reserve Act passed in secret on Christmas Eve. The Rothschild myth versus reality, how truth was weaponized into distraction, how the US presidents like Jackson, Lincoln, and JFK resisted, and what happened to them. Catherine Austin Fitts is the whistleblower they tried to silence. Her background is that she was the Assistant Secretary of HUD under Bush Sr. What she uncovered was trillions of missing dollars, dark budget operations. How she was attacked, then she was sued, and then she was threatened. Her core message is that they're harvesting us. The real meaning behind going direct, BlackRock's pandemic-era Fed takeover. The new world ledger, where it's all going, central bank digital currencies, programmable money, surveillance economy, how your spending can be restricted and will be restricted. It's already happening in China. The Chinese model and the social credit test run. Ties to Gates, Schwab, BlackRock, of course, IMF, and the WHO, artificial intelligence and predictive policy, facial recognition equals total control grid. How to opt out and reclaim financial sovereignty, it's very, very difficult, but gold, crypto with asterisk, local currencies, building parallel economics, bartering time banks, female-led co-ops, how the feminine economy resists extractive finance. Don't wait for the collapse to unplug. Money is a weapon, but so is truth. And once you understand the game, you don't have to play by their rules. So the coup, it already happened. So let me tell you something that no one on CNN or even MSNBC is going to say out loud. The coup already happened. Not on January 6th, not in 2016, not even after 9/11. The coup happened quietly and in plain sight when we gave private bankers the power to print our money and charge us for the privilege. So this episode is going to be about money, but not the kind that you carry, not the kind that you Venmo, stack, flex, or fear. This is about money as invisible power, how it controls your choices, tracks your movements, manipulates elections, funds wars, and ensures the same billionaires who created the collapse will never feel it. If you remember a couple of episodes ago, we spoke about who is going to be the modern day Schindler. And in that episode, we talked about the 3 consecutive Republican presidents that led to the FDR presidency and the Great Depression right before the World War II. If you remember in that episode, we spoke about exactly that. These 3 presidents, Coolidge, Warren, and Harding, they basically constructed the collapse, but then also shielded themselves from it and told everybody else to figure it out. That has never stopped. That's always been a thing. We're going to follow the money all the way back to the beginning, and then we'll follow it straight into the future they're planning for us. And spoiler alert, it involves digital chains. And the woman who warned us, first of all, I'd like to point out that she was in fact a woman, that she is in fact a woman. They tried to destroy her, and her name is Catherine Austin Fitts. So let's go back. Not to the gold standard, not to Reaganomics, although all of that was part of it in its creation. But let's go back to 1694, the creation of the Bank of England, the first true central bank. It was, in fact, revolutionary at the time, not because it helped people, but because it gave elites a permanent state-backed system to profit off of war, debt, and control. For the first time, a government could go into debt to private bankers, and the citizens, not the rich, would be taxed to pay it back. Sound familiar? Fast forward to 1913, Christmas Eve, United States. While most Americans were drinking eggnog, the Federal Reserve Act was passed behind closed doors, and the result was a private banking cartel disguised as a public institution, and it was given total control over the US dollar. That means the US government borrows its own currency with interest. And who benefits? Not us, not your grandma, not your single mom, neighbor working 2 jobs. No. The people who benefit are the same names you see in every global crisis. BlackRock, Goldman Sachs, Vanguard, the IMF, the World Bank, and yes, the Bank for International Settlements. A creepy sounding institution in Switzerland that acts like the Vatican of global finance. If you've ever heard of them, that's by design. If you've never heard of them, that's by design, by the way. And the presidents who tried to fight this machine, let's talk about them. It was Andrew Jackson, shut down the second bank of the US. He was nearly assassinated. Abraham Lincoln created the greenback to avoid borrowing from the banks. He was shot and killed. John F. Kennedy issued Executive Order 11110 to restore monetary control to the Treasury, and we all know how that ended. None of this is conspiracy. It's history. It's documented, and it's been scrubbed from your textbooks. Because centralized banking isn't just about money. It's about controlling everything that flows from money. Your food, your fuel, your freedom. And Catherine Austin Fitts, she saw it up close, working inside the system. And that's where we go next. You know, some people stumble into power. Catherine Austin Fitts did not. She walked straight into it. Credentials in hand, numbers on lock, fully fluent in the language of capital. She graduated from Wharton, made partner at Dillon Read, a top-tier Wall Street firm. Then she was appointed Assistant Secretary of Housing and Urban Development under George H.W. Bush. Translation, she was inside the vault. But she made one mistake. She believed in accountability. At HUD, she started asking uncomfortable questions like, why were hundreds of billions of dollars unaccounted for in a federal housing program? Who was really profiting off of the collapse of urban Black and brown communities? Why did federal money always seem to flow upward, even during crisis? When she tried to fix it, they came for her. The Department of Justice raided her house. She was sued for $35 million, blacklisted from corporate America, called crazy, targeted by smear campaigns. Why? Because she figured out something very real that most Americans still don't understand and don't even know. Guess what, guys? There is no national budget. There's only a balance sheet controlled by private interests. In a now infamous presentation, she detailed how $21 trillion went missing from the US government between 1998 and 2015. Let me say this again. $21 trillion. And that's not a typo, and it's not due to inflation. That's not bad accounting. That is straight up theft. At a scale no one's ready to confront because they've all stolen it. Nobody wants you to know about it, and it's all one big secret, just like the Epstein files. She called it what it was. A financial coup d'etat. She said the quiet part out loud. They don't need Congress anymore. They don't need voters. They already moved the money. And she was right. Because during COVID, we saw it in real time. The Fed didn't just stimulate the economy. It handed BlackRock the keys through a scheme called Going Direct. BlackRock, an unelected corporate giant, was authorized to buy corporate debt with printed money, bypassing democratic process entirely. No debate, no vote, no consent. It was centralized wealth consolidation disguised as crisis response. This is what Catherine warned us about. This is what got her exiled from the elite. And this is why she's now one of the most important voices on the planet. Because when you follow the fiat, you don't find freedom, you find control. And the next phase, it's already loading. We call it CBDC, and it's not just digital money, it's digital obedience. So what is the new ledger? They're not trying to kill cash. No, they already did that. Now they're digitizing the chains. If you connect the dots and you are paying attention to what's going on in the country right now, you are going to be able to connect the dots to this. Let me introduce you to the central bank digital currency. If you think this is just Venmo with a federal logo, you're already behind. The central bank digital currency is programmable money. That means the government or the banks that own them can dictate how you spend your money, where, when, and on what. Let me give you some scenarios. You protested a war, your CBDC wallet gets frozen. Didn't take the next mandatory booster, your funds expire. You bought too much red meat this month, you're locked out of food credits for 7 days. You donated to a feminist PAC, your social trust score drops, and your job application gets flagged. Does this sound dystopian to you, or like this will never happen here in the United States? Well, China's already doing it. Their CBDC is tied to their social credit system, a database that ranks citizens based on obedience, loyalty, and behavior. They can't buy plane tickets, can't book hotels, can't rent apartments, all because of your score. Now tell me, do you think the West isn't watching that closely? We already have some form of this, right? Like, how does our government lend money to itself by printing its own money, charging interest, and then we pay for it? They have the worst credit rating, yet we can't go buy a car if we have bad credit for missing one payment. Do you think the same governments that censored journalists, mandated silence, and bailed out billionaires won't do exactly what China is doing? CBDC will be sold to you as convenience. Just like smartphones, just like Alexa, just like facial recognition, but behind the tech is the real agenda, and you see it because Donald Trump's administration currently is partnering with the likes of Peter Thiel and Oracle to literally digitize and track every single one of our movements. So it's going to lead to total financial surveillance. So let's talk about the WHO pandemic treaty, the WEF digital ID initiative, and the IMF's cross-border CBDC platform. These aren't just policies, they're scaffolding for a global control system where money, movement, medicine, and media are all locked into one operating system. And it's being built by people you didn't vote for, but still own your future. Names like Klaus Schwab, World Economic Forum, Augustine Carstens, Bank for International Settlements, Larry Fink from BlackRock, Christine Lagarde, European Central Bank, Bill Gates, everywhere, always. And then there's Palantir, big data's favorite war profiteer, contracted to run predictive analytics on human behavior, tied to surveillance, policing, border control, and pandemic response. Palantir, of course, is owned by Peter Thiel. And when your money becomes data, and your data is behavior, and your behavior is scored, you are no longer a free citizen. You are not even a citizen. You're an algorithm. And the only question is, who's programming you? So I know that your next question is going to be, oh my God, how do we resist this financial matrix? And what can we do? When the system is this deep, and when the banks own the governments, when the dollar itself is a leash, how do we break free? Well, unfortunately, and as hard as this sounds, we have to build outside of it. Not in a fantasy, but in strategy. Because parallel economies aren't radical, they're necessary for survival. So the number one thing you have to do is decentralize your currency. And I've been talking a lot about this with my friends. I know that when I do talk about it, I haven't ever gone into this much detail, obviously, because this is too maybe advanced for most people. And they're like, what in the fuck are you talking about? But I definitely will send them this episode when I'm done so that they can listen to it and then ask me questions. But when I do talk to them about it, they look at me like I have 7 heads, like, oh my God, the energy that it's going to take to decentralize my currency, like, what am I even going to do, right? Most of us are not multi-millionaires or billionaires, so we don't even have that much money to move around. And then I'm sure the next question you're asking yourself is, do we even have enough money to build systems that are going to build parallel economies for ourselves? So decentralizing your currency looks like this. It's not all crypto is sovereign, but some of it is. And Bitcoin, despite the noise, remains one of the only forms of currency not controlled by a central bank. That said, be smart and be secure. Understand that blockchain technology can be used against us too if we don't build ethically aligned, privacy-centered systems. Also, gold is not dead. Physical assets, precious metals, hard currency, land, the ultra wealthy aren't buying cash. They're buying tangibility. And you should too. Local is power. There's a reason they want everything centralized, because local economies can't be controlled. So start small. Trade labor, time, and skills. Buy from community farms, makers, and service providers, right? Not Verizon service providers. I mean your mom and pop. Use credit unions, not global banks. Create female-led co-ops that prioritize mutual aid, not profit. This is very, very important. A couple of episodes ago, we also spoke about the Neolithic Revolution and what happened prior to this revolution and how human beings were living, which was basically nomadic. But the more important part of the pre-Neolithic revolution is that the nomadic human culture was based on feminine power, and it was, guess what it was, more than anything above all else, it was peaceful. When women run the economy, extraction stops and reciprocity begins. That is the real wealth model, my friends. And I've always, throughout this entire podcast, throughout this entire season, I have been implementing little bits and pieces besides the episode where we only spoke about women. But the real wealth in our society lies in our women. So opt out of the obedience score, reject the digital leash. That means no to facial scans at airports. No to health passports. No to smart cities that track you by default. No to surrendering your data for dopamine. Your freedom is your friction. The more seamless they make it, the more dangerous it becomes. Reclaim the technology. Don't worship it. AI isn't going away, but who it serves is still being decided. We don't need to fear technology. We need to feminize it, humanize it, make it serve life, not capital. That means building our own platforms, owning our own code, and funding truth-telling voices, not algorithms that erase them. Build what cannot be bombed. The ultimate resistance is this. Build what cannot be bought, protect what cannot be coded, love what cannot be tracked, and grow what cannot be shut down. Your garden, your children, your stories, your podcast, your own community. The financial system is the final frontier of patriarchy. But we're not begging for a seat at their table, we're building our own table. I've said that before. One ledger at a time, one voice at a time, one free act at a time. They're not coming, they're already here, but so are we, and we've always been. We are the whistle, we are the alarm, and we are the plan. They can track our spending, but they can't track our spirit. So light your candle, sharpen your mind, and withdraw your consent. Because the fiat is fiction, and the future is women, and the future is sovereign.